Picture this: a perfect dinner party, wine glasses catching the light, laughter filling a beautifully decorated home, a gorgeous couple raising a toast to friendship and love. She's wearing a crimson dress that makes her glow like a sunset. He's at her side, that gentle smile that made her fall in love 7 years ago. And across the table sits her best friend since college, the woman who taught her how to braid her hair, who held her hand through every heartbreak, who was her maid of honor. But if you looked closely, really closely, you'd see something chilling in that best friend's eyes, something that would make your skin crawl, because behind that painted smile was a storm of envy so fierce, so consuming, that it would burn down 3 lives before the sun rose again. I'm about to tell you a story that will make you question everyone you trust. A story about friendship, betrayal, and what happens when jealousy drives someone to the darkest corners of human nature. Stay with me, because this gets more twisted than you can imagine. And make sure you subscribe, because this journey into the depths of jealousy and supernatural revenge will leave you speechless. Meet Tamara, interior designer, warm smile, the kind of woman who remembers your birthday and brings homemade soup when you're sick. She had everything: a thriving business, a beautiful home in Lagos, and Kola. Dr. Kola, pediatric surgeon with hands that save children's lives, and a laugh that could light up any room. The kind of man who still brought his wife flowers every Friday, who slow danced with her in their kitchen while dinner was cooking. They were that couple. You know the one. The couple that made you believe in love again, just by watching them together. And then there was Bisi, marketing executive, sharp mind, designer clothes, ambition that could cut glass. She'd been Tamara's best friend for over a decade. College roommates who became sisters. Or so everyone thought. But here's what nobody knew. Bisi had been in love with Kola since the day Tamara introduced them 8 years ago. She'd watched them fall in love, get engaged, plan their wedding, and she'd smiled through every moment while her heart turned to poison. At night, alone in her penthouse apartment, Bisi would write in her diary. And if you could see those pages, God, if you could see what she wrote. "If fate won't give me what I deserve," she wrote one night, her pen pressing so hard it nearly tore the paper, "I'll carve it out myself." Every Sunday brunch, every couple's vacation where she was the third wheel, every anniversary dinner where she had to watch the man she wanted kiss another woman. It was building to something dark. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in November. Bisi's latest relationship had just ended. Publicly, humiliatingly. Her boyfriend had left her for a younger woman, and the story was all over Lagos social media. She called Tamara, sobbing. "I don't understand," Bisi cried into the phone. "What's wrong with me? Why can't I find what you have?" Being the friend she was, Tamara invited Bisi over immediately. She made tea, ordered Chinese food, and let Bisi cry on her shoulder for hours. When Kola came home from his shift at the hospital, he found them on the couch, Bisi still sniffling into tissues. "Hey," he said gently, sitting down across from them. "Rough day?" And when Kola hugged Bisi goodbye that night, when his arms wrapped around her for just those few seconds, something snapped inside her. She didn't let go as quickly as she should have. Her fingers lingered on his back. She breathed in his cologne like she was trying to memorize it. Tamara noticed, but she pushed the thought away. They were friends. Best friends. Bisi would never. But that night, as Bisi drove home through Lagos traffic, a piece of paper fluttered onto her windshield at a red light. A flyer, crude printing. But the words made her heart stop. Any heart can be yours, guaranteed. Mama I, spiritual solutions for life's problems. Most people would have thrown it away. Most people would have laughed. Bisi crumpled it up. But as she sat there in traffic, jealousy eating her alive, she smoothed it out again, and she put it in her purse. 3 days later, at midnight, Bisi found herself driving through the outskirts of Lagos into the forest, where civilization stopped and something older began. The address led her to a hut lit by oil lamps, smoke curling from cracks in the roof. The air smelled like burning herbs, and something else, something that made her stomach turn. Mama I was exactly what you'd expect, and nothing like you'd imagine. Ancient beyond measure, but her eyes held a sharpness that could cut steel. "You want something that doesn't belong to you?" Mama I said, before Bisi even spoke. "How did you?" "Child, jealousy has a smell. It follows you like perfume." Mama I circled her slowly. "A man, married. You've loved him from shadows for years." Bisi's throat went dry. Can you make him love me instead?" Mama I's laugh was like rustling leaves. "Love? No, child. Love cannot be forced. But desire, obsession, these can be planted like seeds." She reached into a wooden box and pulled out bottles filled with things Bisi didn't want to identify. "To bind his heart to yours, I need 3 things: his sweat, her hair, and a piece of your soul to seal the pact." "What do you mean, a piece of my soul?" Mama I's smile was all teeth. "Nothing comes without cost, daughter. You take his desire, you give something in return. Once you start this path, there is no walking back." Bisi thought about Tamara's laugh, about Kola's gentle hands, about 8 years of watching them be happy while she withered with want. "What do I need to do?" The collection phase was easier than Bisi expected, and that should have been her first warning. At Kola's hospital gym, she volunteered to bring him a fresh towel after his workout. While he showered, she took the sweat-soaked one, her hands trembling as she stuffed it into a plastic bag. Getting Tamara's hair was even simpler. During their weekly spa day, as she braided Tamara's hair, she snipped a small section from an extension. "Oops," she said, when Tamara noticed. "Sorry, babe. I'll trim it to match." Tamara laughed it off. "You've been doing my hair since college. I trust you completely." The words hit Bisi like a slap. Trust. Complete trust. For a moment, guilt crashed over her like a wave. What was she doing? This was her best friend, her sister. But then Tamara started talking about the vacation she and Kola were planning, their 7th anniversary trip to Santorini, how Kola had been saving for months to surprise her, and the jealousy came roaring back, stronger than ever. That night, Bisi returned to Mama I's hut with the ingredients. The old woman mixed them in a pot that bubbled and hissed, turning an unnatural shade of green. She chanted in a language that sounded like it predated human speech. "Drink," Mama I commanded, handing Bisi a cup of the mixture. It tasted like metal and despair. "Now speak his name while the moon watches." "Kola," Bisi whispered. "Kola, Kola, Kola." The forest went silent. Even the insects stopped chirping. That same night, hundreds of miles away, Kola woke from the most vivid dream of his life. He was dreaming about Bisi. The changes started small. Kola sent Bisi a text the next morning. "Had the strangest dream about you last night." It was innocent enough. Friends share weird dreams all the time. But Tamara saw the message when Kola's phone buzzed during breakfast. Something cold settled in her stomach. "What kind of dream?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. I don't really remember, Kola said, but his eyes didn't meet hers. Just strange. Over the next few weeks, the changes became impossible to ignore. Kola forgot their anniversary dinner. He'd never forgotten their anniversary, ever. He laughed too hard at Bisi's jokes during their friend group hangouts. He started working late more often, but when Tamara called the hospital, they said he'd left her hours ago. He was distant in bed, distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. And Bisi was different too, more confident, more beautiful somehow. She started dressing in ways that made heads turn, wearing perfumes that lingered in rooms long after she left. When Tamara confided her worries to her mother, the older woman's face went pale. Nkem, her mother said, using her childhood nickname. Some battles are not fought with words. Evil is real in this world. Jealousy opens doors that should stay closed. She pressed a small amulet into Tamara's hand. Wear this, always, and watch that friend of yours very carefully. Tamara wanted to laugh it off. This was 2024. People didn't really believe in spiritual warfare and protective charms. But as weeks passed and Kola grew more distant, she found herself clutching that amulet like a lifeline. The second ritual was more complex. Mama I needed Tamara's heartbeat, recorded during a moment of pure joy, mixed with river water collected at the darkest hour of night. During their regular yoga session, Bisi held her phone close to Tamara's chest as they practiced breathing exercises. I'm trying this new meditation app, she lied smoothly. It records your heartbeat to sync with the breathing. Tamara, trusting as always, let her record for several minutes. You sound so peaceful, Bisi said, listening to the recording later. So alive. That night, Bisi drove to the Ogun River at 3 a.m. The water was black as ink, reflecting nothing. As she filled a bottle, something moved in the depths, something that shouldn't exist. She tried not to think about it. Back at Mama I's hut, the old woman mixed the heartbeat recording with river water and something that looked like dried flowers but smelled like decay. This one will bind his dreams to you, Mama I cackled. But be careful, child. Dreams have power. They can pull a man's soul right out of his body. I don't care about his soul, Bisi said, and the words felt like glass in her throat. I just want him to be mine. The results were immediate and terrifying. Kola started sleepwalking. Tamara would wake to find him standing in their bedroom, staring out the window toward the direction of Bisi's apartment. He began forgetting things, important things, patients' names, surgery schedules, his own mother's birthday. But he remembered everything about Bisi, her favorite coffee order, the exact shade of lipstick she wore, things a married man had no business noticing. One Thursday evening, Kola didn't come home from work. Tamara called his phone dozens of times. Finally, at midnight, he answered. "Where are you?" she asked, trying not to sound frantic. I'm at Bisi's apartment, he said, his voice strange and hollow. I needed to talk to someone. About what? Kola, what's wrong with you? I don't know, he whispered, and for a moment he sounded like himself again, confused, scared. Tamara, I don't know what's happening to me. The confrontation came the next day. Tamara showed up at Bisi's office, her heart pounding with a mixture of rage and terror. We need to talk, she said, closing the door behind her. Bisi looked up from her computer, and for just a second, Tamara saw something inhuman flicker across her face. Of course, babe. What's wrong? You look terrible. You know exactly what's wrong, What have you done to my husband?" Bisi's expression were perfect confusion, mixed with hurt. "What are you talking about? Kola came to me because he's confused. He said you've been acting paranoid lately, accusing him of things." "Don't you dare," Tamara's voice cracked. "I've known you for 10 years, Bisi. I know when you're lying." "Tamara, you're scaring me. You sound unstable. Maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist. This jealousy isn't healthy." The gaslighting was expert, professional. If Tamara hadn't been wearing her mother's amulet, if she hadn't felt it burning against her chest like a brand every time she got near Bisi, she might have believed her own sanity was slipping. But the amulet was hot as fire, and Tamara knew with bone-deep certainty that her best friend had become her worst enemy. That night, Tamara made a call she never thought she'd make. "Pastor Oak, this is Tamara Adebayo. I need your help. I think someone is using spiritual means to destroy my marriage." Pastor Oka was a retired police detective who'd found God after seeing too much evil in the world. He'd become the person Lagos Christians called when they faced darkness that prayer alone couldn't handle. "Come and see me tomorrow," he said without hesitation, "and bring that amulet your mother gave you. We're going to need it." Pastor Oak's investigation was both methodical and supernatural. He pulled security footage from Kola's hospital gym. There was Bisi, clear as day, taking Kola's towel when she thought no one was watching. He interviewed mutual friends. They all said the same thing. Bisi had always watched Kola too closely, laughed too hard at his jokes, found excuses to touch his arm during conversations. But it was the spiritual investigation that revealed the true horror. "Someone has placed a very powerful binding on your husband," Pastor Oke said, after praying over a photograph of Kola. "His soul is being pulled away from his body bit by bit. If this continues much longer, you'll lose him completely, not just to another woman, but to madness." "How do we stop it?" "There's only one way. You have to confront the source. But it's dangerous, daughter. This kind of dark work always requires a price. The question is, are you willing to pay it?" Tamara thought about Kola's empty eyes, about the man she loved disappearing more each day. "Tell me what I need to do." Pastor Oak explained about the night of 2 moons, when the spiritual realm was unstable and dark magic was at its weakest. "You'll have to face her at the source of the magic, where the binding was made, and you'll have to be prepared for violence, because desperate people do desperate things when their power is threatened." 3 days later, the night sky held 2 moons, one real, one reflection in the cosmic dance that happened once every 7 years. It was time. The forest was alive with malevolent energy. Tamara followed the directions Pastor Oak had given her, her mother's amulet glowing faintly against her chest. Every step felt like walking through thick mud. She could hear voices ahead, chanting. When she reached the clearing, her heart nearly stopped. Kola was there, standing like a sleepwalker in front of Mama Ai's hut. His eyes were completely blank, like looking at a mannequin wearing her husband's face. Bisi stood beside him, holding a curved knife that gleamed in the firelight. And Mama Ai. Mama Ai was chanting words that made the trees bend away from the sound. "Tonight," Bisi said, her voice carrying unnaturally far, "the binding becomes permanent. All I need is her blood, and he'll never remember her name." That's when Tamara stepped into the clearing. "The only blood being spilled tonight is yours, Bisi." Bisi spun around, and the face that looked back at Tamara was barely human anymore. Her eyes were solid black, her fingernails had grown into claws, and when she smiled, her teeth were filed to points. "Sister," Bisi hissed, and her voice echoed like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. "You're just in time to say goodbye to your husband." The verbal battle that followed was like nothing Tamara had ever experienced. "He loves me," Tamara shouted. "You can drug him, bewitch him, steal his mind, but you can never steal what we built together." "Love?" Bisi laughed, and windows in nearby villages probably cracked. "He was mine before you ever touched him. I watched him first. I wanted him first. You stole him with your perfect smile and your perfect life. I never stole anything. He chose me. Because you tricked him, because you made him think you were what he wanted." The accusations flew back and forth, while Kola stood between them like a statue, the knife in Bisi's hand growing brighter with each word. And then Pastor Oak emerged from the forest behind Tamara. He threw consecrated water at Mama Ai's hut. The building exploded into flames. Mama Ai screamed and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind only the smell of sulfur and burned hair. The potions inside the hut began exploding like fireworks, sending multicolored smoke billowing into the night sky. And Bisi lost her mind completely. "If I can't have him," she shrieked, raising the knife, "no one can." She lunged at Kola's motionless form. Tamara threw herself between them. The blade sliced across her palm, drawing a line of blood that splattered onto her mother's amulet. The amulet exploded into light so bright it turned night into day. When the light faded, everything had changed. Kola collapsed to the ground, blinking and confused, but his eyes were his own again. "Tamara?" he whispered. "What? Where are we? How did we get here?" Bisi was on her knees, screaming, as the supernatural beauty she'd gained over the past months melted away like wax. Her hair fell out in clumps. Her skin aged years in seconds. The evil she'd invited in was consuming her from the inside out. "No," she wailed. "This isn't fair. I deserve love. I deserve happiness." "You deserve exactly what you chose," Pastor Oak said grimly, pulling out his phone to call the police. "Jealousy, hatred, and loneliness." As the forest burned around them, Tamara helped Kola to his feet. He was weak, confused, but alive, himself again. "I'm sorry," he kept whispering. "I don't know what happened to me. I remember feeling like I was drowning, like I couldn't control my own thoughts." "It wasn't your fault," Tamara said, pressing her bleeding palm against his chest. "None of it was your fault." The police found them an hour later. Bisi was charged with assault, attempted murder, and a dozen other crimes. The supernatural elements couldn't be prosecuted, but the human crimes were more than enough. During her trial, psychiatrists called her delusional. They said she'd suffered a complete psychotic break brought on by obsessive jealousy. They weren't entirely wrong. 6 months later, Tamara and Kola stood under a flamboyant tree in their backyard, renewing their wedding vows. Not because they had to, because they wanted to, because they'd fought through literal hell to keep their love alive, and they wanted to celebrate that victory. Pastor Oak officiated the ceremony. In his sermon, he talked about jealousy. "Jealousy," he said, "is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It destroys the one who holds it, and it spreads to innocent people like a disease. But love, real love, can survive anything, even spiritual warfare." The small ceremony was attended by family and a few close friends, people who had proven themselves trustworthy. Bisi was in a psychiatric facility, undergoing treatment that would probably last years. Sometimes she wrote letters to Tamara, letters that ranged from apologic to threatening to completely incoherent. Tamara never opened them, As for Mama I, she was never found. But sometimes, late at night, people reported seeing an old woman walking the highways around Lagos, muttering to herself about the price of power and the cost of desire. The burned remains of her hut were eventually overgrown by the forest, but locals say if you walk by the spot on nights when 2 moons shine, you can still smell burning herbs and hear the echo of ancient chants. 3 years have passed since that terrible night in the forest. Tamara and Kola have a baby now, a little girl with her father's gentle eyes and her mother's warm smile. They've moved to a new house, changed their phone numbers, started fresh, but they've also learned to recognize the signs. The too long hugs, the lingering stares, the friends who ask too many questions about their relationship. Jealousy hasn't disappeared from the world. If anything, social media has made it worse. People see carefully curated highlight reels and think everyone else's life is perfect, while theirs is falling apart. But Tamara and Kola know something most people don't. The greatest protection against jealousy isn't perfection, it's gratitude. They're grateful for every ordinary morning, every shared cup of coffee, every quiet evening at home. They know how close they came to losing everything, and they know that somewhere out there, people are still making the same choice Bisi made, choosing envy over empathy, obsession over respect, darkness over light. What would you do if someone you trusted used the darkest forces imaginable to destroy your happiness? How far would you go to protect the person you love? These are questions nobody wants to face. But in a world where jealousy can drive people to unimaginable extremes, they're questions we all need to consider. Because sometimes the greatest enemy isn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. Sometimes it's the person sitting across from you at dinner, raising a glass to friendship while plotting your destruction. If this story opened your eyes to the dark side of human nature, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because jealousy is everywhere, and the only defense against it is awareness. Like this video if you believe love can survive anything, and comment below about a time when someone's jealousy surprised you. Because this story isn't just about supernatural revenge, it's about the very real evil that jealousy can unleash, and the very real power that love has to overcome it. Stay vigilant, stay grateful, and never underestimate what someone might do when envy takes control of their heart.